Island Indian Community's tribal reservation is located 600 yards from nearly all radioactive nuclear waste from Minnesota's 2 nuclear plants, which will be dangerous for humans for thousands of years. The nearby nuclear plant has had multiple safety events over the years that were disclosed to the tribe with no time for evacuation. Finally, both of Minnesota's nuclear power plants are located on the banks of the Mississippi River, including one upstream where both Minneapolis and St. Paul source our drinking water. How would you like to see the city of Minneapolis include, expand, phase out, or eliminate energy from nuclear as it works towards the 2030 goal of 100% renewable energy?
I would like to see the city of Minneapolis meet its climate goals, invest in renewable energy, and fully fund the zero waste agenda that was adopted in 2017. This will reduce our reliance on HERC and nuclear energy.
I think we are well advanced in society in America right now. We talk about nuclear waste and nuclear energy right now. We have, we got to that's the goal. It requires the city of Minneapolis and any government to really bring that goal, not just talk, but also enforce and eliminate this tax waste in our society.
Tiger Worku. I think that the plant in Monticello with a cannery and a coal mine provide nuclear simply isn't a replacement for our current energy needs. It's important to note that there are attempts to classify nuclear as renewable energy. Back during last year's Senate District 63 convention, there was a motion to make sure that the DFL would incorporate nuclear energy as a potential renewable source, and I made sure to lead the opposition against it, and it failed. And so, to answer the question more directly, I don't think we should be looking into it at all. I just think it's a flat-out no on whether or not we should invest in nuclear energy. And so, as the city councilman for Ward 6, I will make sure that our city remains a city without nuclear energy, and I will push for more renewable sources of energy like solar, wind, potentially water. Thank you.
As the city of Minneapolis works towards its goal, we have a goal in the city. By 2030, we have to be 100% using renewable energy as an energy. There are several options though. If we have to, in order for us to reach the goal of 100% of using renewable energy, there is no room for nuclear energy. So what are we going to do to replace that? Well, we have one potential approach to phasing out nuclear power is to gradually transition from existing nuclear power plants and replace them with renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, and geothermal power. In terms of expanding renewable energy sources, the city will focus on promoting the development of community solar gardens, expanding rooftop solar installations, and supporting the development of wind and geothermal energy projects. The city could also work to increase the use of energy storage technologies such as batteries to help ensure that renewable energy sources are available when needed. And all those investments, they have to be equitable in terms of employment and resources for communities. Thank you.
Thank you all. The final prepared question is on receiving community input. The response order will be Osman, Worku, Bihi, and then finally Magan. Constituents are asked all the time for their input on issues that change the fabric of our communities that have deep implications for equity and climate, from city-level development, county-level transit, to state-level climate plans. But often it can feel unclear if our feedback meaningfully impacts the outcome or really demographically represents the community. sure that City Hall's policies actually use the feedback that communities give, rather than community watching plans that have no buy-in from residents.
Well, listening to the community, Ward 6 has it, it's tough. It really has it tough. It's a district that 100 languages are spoken. And how can the city communicate with those residents when they only communicate English? Since I got there last 3 years, I've been fighting for equity and making sure that we are communicating with residents, especially those that don't speak English. Somali speakers, Latino speakers, Spanish speakers, Hmong speakers, all of them. We gotta have a different communication. And when it comes to listening to the community input, that has to be important. You see, I know that everything is put through the Zoom or a piece of paper, but the community I represent, the community I came from, is a broken language. They like this kind of setting. So we gotta do better and making sure that we are listening to the community and putting policies that are actually not just, here's an email, give us a survey, but coming to the community, bringing your tables here and connecting to the community. We see that COVID pandemic, how this community was left behind. We see that civil unrest. We even see that right now in their policing process. So I have been the voice of the city council, and I will continue to be the voice of those that have a barrier when it comes to Minneapolis. Thank you.
Tiger Worku, thank you for the question. You know, Councilmember Jamal, I appreciate the spirit of inclusivity that you've brought here today. But I have to admit, you failed in your outreach to multiple communities, regardless of which language they speak. And so what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we're at least making the effort. I know it's hard, but it's worth it. One of the reasons I decided to run for this seat was because of the local environmental issue that I felt like did not get the type of recognition or support that it deserved. And that issue is the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm. Councilmember Jamal Osman voted against the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm.
That's a lie.
Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And that's a fact, Councilmember. You can go to the City of Minneapolis' website and you will see Councilmember Osman's votes. And he finally changed his vote, and I'm going to quote Councilmember Osman myself when he said, "I have changed my mind." So, Councilmember, I don't know if you're able to change your mind if you were consistent on the issue the whole time. It's a lie that you can change your mind?
It's a lie.
Let's have some time to dialogue after
Okay.
this.
I'll like to respond.
All right, well, the fact of the matter is, Councilmember, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're entitled to your own facts. And the fact remains that you failed Ward 6 on that issue, and you did not host any community conversations. You have yet to host any community conversations. And so I make a pledge to the people of Ward 6 that if I'm elected to the seat, whenever important issues like that come up, I will be in every single neighborhood. I will bring in translators, just like we have here today, and we are going to bring consensus to City Hall because that's what Ward 6 deserves. Ward 6 matters, and that's why I'm in this race. Thank you.
Well, you know, I'm not just talking, but I have a plan because I have experience of 20 years of giving feedback to the community, of living within this community, especially in this high rises. So I understand how important it is to really have a plan to communicate with the community. I will create meaningful opportunities for community feedback. I will establish various channels for community feedback, such as public forums, town hall meetings, online surveys, social media platforms. The feedback process should be transparent, accessible, and inclusive of diverse voices and perspectives. Engage with community representatives. They are very important. Business community, faith community, all types of non-profits like this one that has a potential, that have had the potential and continues to serve thousands of people who need services. Incorporate community feedback into policy making. Not only listen to people as a politician, but take their needs, their voices, and their feedback and incorporate it into the policies we are developing at the City Hall. That's a true impact. Provide feedback on how community input has been used. That's also very important. I have done this for years and years in and out. I receive from 60 to 75 calls a day. Not I answer all of them, but I call them back. And because why? Because the service you provide is very important for people.
Kayseh, the question was, how do you ensure the city hall's policy to actually use the feedback that communities give rather than community watching plans that have no buy-in from residents? So I would propose that community feedback is, we get feedback in the beginning before we make policies. That ensures that those feedback goes into the policy, right? So what we have right now in the third precinct is that policy gets developed, and then you get the options at the end, and it's really not feedback, but picking between the choices that have already been selected for you. And then people, they don't have buy-in, they don't feel like they were heard. So I am proposing that for a lot of the issues that matter to the public, that we have community feedback in the beginning so that it gets implemented into the policy. Thank you.
So we're just gonna take one pause. We have a couple of audience questions. I'm gonna switch to Sophia. Thank you all so much, and I appreciate you all kind of keeping it in the sharing just one directional, and we'll have time if you have questions about, for example, in the last, I think there's some interest in some back and forth here. If you have questions about what Tiger said or what Jamal has said, or what Jamal's position is, please approach them and ask them. We're gonna keep it just for time. It's not a debate, so we're just having, and I know it's challenging when those things get brought up about positions that you have, so I appreciate your patience. We'll switch to audience questions. Sophia's going to round us out here with those questions. And if we run out of audience questions, we'll have the phone to the candidates. And keep in mind what Aaron said for first choice voting, who is your second choice candidate too. So you know that as you do. Do you have any other questions to add to that?
Any other audience questions? I didn't receive any.
Okay, it looks like people are very interested in all the same thing. There's 3 questions that say almost the exact same thing over and over again in different ways. So I'm going to read the longest one because I think it offers more context to the question. Also, I'm Sophia. Oh, I feel like I'm talking very loud compared to everyone else. Okay. Minneapolis is currently served by Xcel Energy for electricity and CenterPoint for gas. Both are corporate-owned for-profit utilities. Please share if you would support, what's this say? The creation of a municipality-owned energy utility in Minneapolis, and what you will do to promote that effort. Oh, and the order is Worku, Bihi, is it Magan or Magan? Magan, and Osman.
Thank you. Here's what I'll say. I think that we have to understand that CenterPoint Xcel is a Minneapolis-based energy company. CenterPoint is a Dallas-based energy company. And so I guess it comes down to economic theory, right? When you have conglomerates, when you have monopolies form, then there's less competition, which means that these energy companies can hike up their rates, or they have excessive say over the political process. And so what we need to do is we need to start offering more grants to environmental startups so that they can kind of rival these huge conglomerates, and so that they can provide variety for people. And I think what that's going to do is it's going to naturally bring down the cost of energy. And it'll also force a lot of these oil-based companies to transition much faster. So I look forward to working with we have a lot of bright entrepreneurs who want to start environmental companies here in Minneapolis or in one of the surrounding suburbs. And I look forward to working with them get cleaner energy at a much cheaper rate.
I think those corporations are the most profitable, that really give the biggest return as an energy company in Minnesota. And yes, I do support municipality-owned energy sources as well as community partners, because it's us who are using this source. This source is not like any other product. This product is impacting our lives, so we should have a more say rather than shareholders guiding our energy sources or what type of energy we should have. We vote, we count, so we should really have to say to not the shareholders or that profit from it, but the people of this city should own it, and the city of Minneapolis or the municipality should own it. But as my colleague suggested, yes, if those are companies that really from the community, that as I mentioned earlier, we could have solars in the rooftops, we could have different ways, different formats of providing energy. So yes, again, I do support that.
There's a lot of ways that we could hold our Retail Energy Center accountable. A lot of that is at the state level of the utilities. Requires that we lobby our city officials, elected officials at the city level, lobby their state representatives. We can all do that to make sure that we hold these large conglomerates accountable. Right? They do have a right to make a profit, but they don't have the right to price gouge. Right? So what can we do to make sure that they are held accountable? We can do a lot of things I've already mentioned, meaning that we can do inclusive financing so that people can invest in their properties, making sure that they have better windows, making sure that they have solar panels so that they can reduce the cost. Right now, the biggest barrier, as we said, for reducing energy costs is financial. And that's a racial issue because oftentimes those who can't do it are those who are low income and often minority.
I'd like to use my time just put the record straight. I did vote for 50 vote. I'm not sure what Mr. Worku is talking about. And this is, it really takes leadership to be in the city council, especially the government structure. Now the mayor's powers, the council has to be united. And if you think you're gonna make a difference by having like one voice out of it, that's why I put myself as a swing vote. I do not belong to the establishment or super progressive groups. Me and council president and councilmember Johnson have the power because we vote what's right for the residents. With that being said, of course, Excel Energy is a big element, like I say in the room. Their contract is coming out, we are negotiating right now. So I will be sitting in those rooms negotiating with them, and I do support municipal electricity to make sure city is taking the lead. If you have a multi-billionaire company leading that, they can do anything because they can shut your gas off. You don't have no other option. So of course we have to have an option. In the city of Minneapolis, there are other cities that are leading this effort. Thank you.
Okay, there's one last question from the audience. It's not relevant to exactly the energy, but I think it's very relevant to this board. What is your plan to increase funding to address the opioid crisis that is taking a toll on the lives of so many young people in our communities? And the order is Bihi, Magan, Osman, Worku.
One of the reasons I'm running is to fight the inequality of addressing issues that impact us all. Opioid crisis is a nationwide crisis. Minneapolis is no different. This community where I live in Cedar-Riverside is no different. I have a neighbor just turned 19, very athletic, that just died a couple of weeks ago of opioids. We have a tradition of taking the body, the funeral, and doing ceremony at the Islamic funeral. And the caretaker, Sheikh Abdirizak, told me that the young people in this community are dying of opioids so early, 14, 15. It's not something that we should be saying here. I am willing not to fund organizations that are somewhere away, but organizations like Bible Community Center and other organizations and churches and mosques in Ward 6 and in our city. We really have the resources. Community faith, whether it's a synagogue or a church, is really helpful, or a mosque. They're helpful. They have congregations. I will work with the community of faith. I will work with a number of the organizations like District United and many others in Seward and in our city to make sure that we get the right funding. I am so glad that the pharmaceuticals are being sued and there's funding and money in the state level, but we need the relationship to work with the state and the county.
As we all know, Ward 6 has a crisis among our recycling youth, there's an opioid crisis. The way we can solve that is by not getting funding from large organizations that may not provide culturally appropriate services, but by funding organizations rooted in our community that understand these youth, that understand the culture, that can go past the language barrier and custom and culture and provide the services that they need. Instead of going to services that are outside our city or may not understand the cultural needs of that specific community. Thank you.
It's not an easy answer. It has been one of the toughest issues that I had to deal with in the last 2 years. We have young East African, Native American youth that are dying, and it comes down to education. It comes down to funding. The city of Minneapolis has never funded opioid. They have funded staff to engage, but not program. What we need is programming. I'm glad to say this year we put out $150,000 for programs, Narcan training. We have seen last year too. We have seen youths in this room that are educating moms educating so we can save those kids' lives. We funded first time on my time. We had a program sitting in Minneapolis. We brought us to the last 2 years. You see the youth with the blue shirt that are walking around, talking to the youth and saying, what do you need today? Do you need a doctor? Do you need a housing? Here's an incentive that you can go talk to somebody. They need love. And the most important thing is educating the parents. When I go there and speak in Somali or speak in any other language, I talk to them and say, your kids need you. We gotta give them this stigma. We gotta educate. At the same time, the city has to take the lead. And this is not just a problem in the city, but it's a state problem and a society problem. We gotta help those folks create programs. Let's say programs. I'm glad to say that we put enough funding. Not enough funding, but we put funding this year and last year. And I continue to educate my colleagues, let them know that I'm glad that youth came and spoke on the diocese. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This is a personal question for me because the youth we're talking about are my peers. I went to school with many of them. I know many of them. And so what we need to do is we need to take a community-oriented approach to this. I don't think bringing in more law enforcement is going to help. It hasn't helped. And it's easy to talk about what we do, but it's time for a reality check. It's time for us to take a look around and say, what has been done? How much better has our community gotten in the last 4 years under Councilmember Jamal? I'll let you make that decision. But ultimately, my approach is going to be a little different. I have many personal networks that I believe I'll be able to utilize as the city councilman for Ward 6. We're going to work hard to get these young folks off the streets and into the job market or into the classroom so that they become productive members for both themselves and society. I look forward to taking on this approach as a young person, and I've already started this work throughout the campaign.
I keep thinking that this microphone is going to be around me, and it's not. And it's really tripping me up right now. So since we are ending with questions a little bit early, we want to give everyone
city of Minneapolis need leadership, not advocates. They don't need advocacy, but they need leadership. Someone who can convince the person that is against the person that don't want to vote with you. How can you do this? How can you bring that your need to the city hall? Build a relationship with the mayor, with the council president, with your colleagues. Sell your vision. We do have a lot of challenges. We came from a long way. Our community went through a lot through the pandemic, through opioids as we talked about, through difficult housing. There's a lot of decisions, and I have seen the bad and ugly, and I had to take actually early leadership in my time to be there growing up on the table. Say, hey, let's get along. Our city, we all have responsibility to our city, and this is the future of our city. So make a decision based on the leadership and the quality of the individual. We need someone who can get done, not someone who can just tell you what you like to hear. Thank you so much.
The reason I am running again for Ward 6 City Council is to change our city, is to impact our residents, provide the services they need, and address the issues that are paramount and vital to our residents. Opioid crisis is one of them. Our unsheltered community is another one. The lack of resources because of discrimination and racism in certain communities, that's another problem. In this space, I keep referring to this space because I lived here for 24 years. My office has been here for a long time. Sometimes you will find our spaces that we compete for, like the team, Worku, not because they don't want to open it, because there are no resources. In certain communities like the East African community, 20 years is the average of those communities. It's very young population. Unemployment is 26%. We need real voice to really speak out and not shy away from the facts that are taking place on the ground. It's the resources for our future, our young people. It's about remedying, housing them, and not just laughing at them and passing by them on the street while they're struggling. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you all for attending tonight's forum. I want to thank Minnesota Power and its partnering organizations for also hosting tonight's forum. And I also want to thank my fellow candidates for showing up. I look forward to continuing to have fruitful discussions. This has been a blast. And to be honest with you, I think what we need in Ward 6, right, anybody can say change. It's kind of like a cliche when it comes to politics, but we need someone who knows the issues. I was born and raised in this ward. I have an idea of the makeup of it, both geographically and socially, and I think I'll be able to build the kind of coalition that won't just carry our campaign to victory, but carry us to real policy success on the city council. I also want to note that throughout my time talking with the residents of Ward 6 so far, people often talk about a return of basic constituent services. So, Ward 6 isn't, although some people may call it a complicated ward, you don't need to be a political purist to do well in this ward. All you need to do is keep in touch with your residents. You need to make sure that if they give you a phone call, you're returning that phone call. If they're sending an email, you're returning that email. Let you work day and night to make sure that the issues that we all face are resolved. So ultimately, I want the voters of Ward 6 to take this from tonight's discussion. I want you to think about what has changed and what can change. That's the beauty of Ward 6. We've got an ongoing one, and I think that's wonderful. And to conclude, I want to say this. I am the environmental candidate in this race. I'm proud to have been endorsed by the Sunrise Movement, the only climate agency that's decided to endorse in this race. And I look forward to continuing to build a bigger coalition through intersectionality. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Community Power for hosting this event and everyone who showed up. My name is Kayseh, and I'm running to represent the Minneapolis City Council because I want to live in a city that answers to all its residents. Thank you.
Okay, well, that is the conclusion of the Q&A and some closings for the night. Thank you so much, y'all, for
send this to you?
Yeah,
sure. Email, text.
Either way,
All right.
or more email, definitely, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send it to. What's your email?
And thank you so
You
much
sent.
for Fairvote, Minnesota. Okay. And then our volunteer folks and timekeeping.